we are going to hop into segment number 2. And this is about a 20-year-old church abuse probe that has been going on in the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Philadelphia. And it has finally come to a quiet end with the misdemeanor plea of an aging cleric. This cleric is Monsignor. His name is William Lynn. He was not accused of doing anything with the children himself. However, he knew about the problem and he did nothing about it. He says that he did pass it on to his superiors and they kind of just blew it off. And he is now taking the responsibility legally for this of not having been investigated. Phil, you want to tell us what you think about this?
Yeah, but he is saying that it is he passed on to his superiors, but from what I read, he seemed to move in one case. He moved a priest who was a known pedophile. They were having problems at that particular parish, and he moved the priest to the Philadelphia circuit. And then there was this guy who accused him of abuse. Not him, sorry, accused the priest that he moved of abuse. And I think that's what also was brought up in court. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately, I don't know why it took so long, right, for the investigation to go on, because then the statute of limitations expired. So this one guy was the only one that lied within the statute of limitations. What do you think about that, Scotty? What do you think was going on there?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure where to start here. I mean, it's a story about these terrible crimes involving the abuse of children, and it's all the makings of a Hollywood smash hit, right? We got this large scale cover up. We have enabling of those crimes by this church organization. We have this massively influential and wealthy Catholic Church, and the deep corruption from within the church. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I mean, this really highlights. It's similar to the previous segment where we were talking about misplaced trust. And so, but in this case, the misplaced trust is institutionalized, right? And so what we're seeing here is that, are they cutting this guy a break or something? Are they cutting him slack? Because, well, first of all, of course, it's frustrating that we see this type of corruption and cover up happening. But the frustrating part is that it seems like there's nothing that's really being done about it. And I don't know, Jason, what do you think about that aspect? I mean, what do you think?
This shit really gets under my skin. Well, I mean, one thing that really stood out to me is that he's the first church official that has ever been charged, convicted, or imprisoned over their handling of priest abuse complaints. Let me see. He served 3 years in state prison before the appeals court throughout his felony child endangerment conviction, and then he pled no contest in November 2022 to a misdemeanor charge of failing to turn over records to the 2002 grand. I mean, it's just all these little things. Now, at his trial, Lynn
with
said
no
that
further
he made
punishment.
a list of 35. No further punishment. So, and it's wild because Lynn said that he had made a list of 35 suspected predator priests, so that Bevilacqua would address this matter, only to have the list be destroyed. Lynn, who has remained a priest through this whole time, has been saying mass for retired nuns with hopes to get more duties. The trial accuser said that he had been abused by 2 priests and his Catholic school teacher. One of them, the defrocked priest Edward Avery, took a plea offer days before the trial. The Reverend Charles Englehart, who said he had never met the accuser, was convicted in 2013 and died in prison. And then teacher Bernard Sherrill was released in 2017 after his conviction was overturned, like Lynn, and pled no contest to lesser charges. So yeah, Kelly, what you were saying about them, like, are they really even getting punished for this? I mean, and then whatever happened to the 35 other things that were destroyed? And I mean, I just don't get it. People have so much power over this. Phil, how do you feel about this?
Mm. Yeah. A thing that I realized, something I realized was that even the person that came forward, right, and accused, who was still within the statute of limitations, um, apparently questions were raised about the legitimacy of the person's witness, their witness
Mm.
testimony, their testimony, because apparently that person had a history of drug addiction, right? So, and
What that's so fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then and that the what he was saying, what the testimony that was given seemed outrageous, basically, right?
Right.
So
That's a way to
I
what a
I
it's
way to marginalize somebody, man. What's up, Kelly?
yeah.
What you got, man?
I I I'm having a hard time talking right now. This kind of ties into our first story, and what Scott was talking about is using this religious authority, right,
Mhm.
to take advantage of people. They were both Bishop Bling Bling and the priest in this case were both using their religious authority. They used the goodwill of believers to take advantage of innocent, vulnerable
Mhm.
people. And in this case, it's even worse because they were fucking children. And I don't like, I don't normally swear on the show, but this really pisses me off. They were
Mhm.
ruining these
Yeah.
poor kids for the rest of their lives. The article, as Phil mentioned, the article even says the one boy had a drug addiction problem his whole life. And I'm going to speak from my heart here, and this is why it's hard for me to talk about this. I was a phys- I had a, was physically abused as a child. I had PTSD for the whole first half of my adult life. I could not deal with life. I was so messed up. I was involved heavily in drugs. I drank too much. I was in the same position this poor boy was in, and it hurts me so bad to
Mhm.
hear and see somebody else in that position. And I was running away from the reality that haunted me instead of standing up to it, facing it, resolving the pain within myself. It took me 2 decades to get my shit together, as you can probably tell from the sound of my voice. I
Mhm.
still
Wow.
don't have it completely together. I still do get triggers to my PTSD every once in a while.
Mhm.
And I can understand what they did to these poor fucking kids. And it just
Yeah.
breaks my heart. So
Mhm.
anybody else can take it from there. Sorry.
Well,
I,
Kelly,
I
thank.
realize, or sorry, but just one thing I want to say is that I realize that it seems as if the church drags their feet because I don't know, this is my perception, observation. It seems as if they drag their feet to that the statutes of limitation will pass, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and that, as Kelly said, it breaks his heart, it breaks my heart too. And this makes my blood boil when they get away with this here. If it was anyone else, they will have had them convicted. I suspect from what I am seeing with these cases within the church, these abuse cases within church, it seems as if the church drags their feet and shift around these priests so that the statute of limitations run out, right? Because that is what happened in this case.
Mhm.
Um, there are many more, according to the article I read, there are many more children
Mhm.
who were abused by the priests, right? Not this priest that that compiled the list, but the priest that got moved. But the statute of limitations, which is I think is 20 years, had run out for those victims, apparently. And it it hurt my heart to hear that they suffered and the priest is basically, getting away scot-free. And then this witness, because they have a history of addiction due to the trauma, right? Now their history of addiction is being taken as, oh, this person is probably lying. This is ridiculous. Well, well, guys, what do you say about that? I mean, it really gets me angry.
Yeah, it's and it illustrates kind of what we've all been talking about, and that is this undeserved special place. But and the church definitely drags their feet to try to wait out statute of limitations, but there's more to it than that. Listen to what Monsignor Lynn, what his response was. I did not intend any harm to come to the victim. The fact is, my best was not good enough to stop that harm. And I'm sorry, but I'm not buying that. He did not do his best.
No,
No,
not at
he
all.
How
did not.
hard is
Not
it?
at all.
How
Not
hard
at
is it
all.
to stand up? He knew that those priests has been accused of abuse, and he covered it up anyway. I mean, yeah, we could say he was just obeying orders. Where have we heard that before? And much of the blame should have gone on his superiors. But he did knowingly endanger children, and so he should be convicted
Mhm.
of child
Yep.
endangerment. And he
Agreed.
was twice convicted, but both times they were overturned, and then they settled on this plea bargain for this misdemeanor. I'm not entirely sure that justice was not
Served.
correctly applied here for this
Mhm.
particular individual. He did spend some time in prison, and so it's not like he's just he's skating. I think in many ways the church is kind of throwing him under the bus and saying,
Oh,
see,
yeah.
look at this, we're cracking down, look what's happening
Mhm.
here. But I would be curious to see how similar trials would turn out if it wasn't Monsignor Lynn who's the defendant. And I'm sure they took every opportunity to say that during the trials.
Mhm.
But it just makes you wonder how deep this goes. I did find an article on salon.com highlighting what they call the 5 ways the church gets preferential treatment. And one of the ways they said was involved in criminal investigations, and we've seen plenty of this.
Oh, yeah.
And they cited an investigative story from the Dallas Morning News from 2004, and it referred to the case as William Lynn as being exceptional. Jason, I think you mentioned this before about how people, priests haven't normally gone to prison for this kind of thing, and so
No, they haven't.
in that way it's
Mhm.
unusual. But according to the Daily Morning News, or the Dallas Morning News, and their investigation says, since the clergy sex abuse scandal exploded anew in 2002, referring to this story,
Yep.
Catholic leaders have taken the brunt of the blame. Overlooked is the role of the police, prosecutors, and judges. The people expected to hold abusers accountable when the church itself will not. Law enforcement typically has helped through inaction, but sometimes the age has been direct. And I do, in full disclosure, I want to point out that salon.com did not provide a link to this Dallas Morning News article, and I couldn't find the article myself. So take that information with a grain of salt. But I do like the fact, regardless of what we think about what happened to this one man, regardless of what we think about is happening with the corruption in the church overall, it is at least it's bringing this constant bringing this to the attention of people. Say, hey, look what's going on with this. This is happening. We need to wake up and smell the coffee here. Jason, what's your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I wanted to kind of discuss what you were talking about. Like, is this a systemic problem that we're not only seeing in the church? And it has been consistently a systemic problem. What I'm meaning to say is that people are not adequately punished for child abuse, for hurting and raping and pillaging and doing all those horrible things that predominantly men in power do. It's really sad. I've been going down a criminology kind of rabbit hole since taking a break this past semester. And I've been obsessing over serial killers, mass murderers, and just stuff like that. So just a lot of information still, but it's kind of relaxing. What's really interesting is the reason that people were able to get away with stuff was because they did things to children, they did things to sex workers, they did things to gay men, and that's the group, especially gay men and sex workers. We call them the less dead, and
The
that's referring to the
marginalized
police.
people.
Yeah, they're marginalized. So you also have to look. Only recently have we really cared about the well-being of children. It's really interesting how commonplace child abuse and sexual abuse was, it still is, but much more commonplace and less of a big deal. Oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened. So when we look at that, the people who are doing it are men who are in charge. So if men who are in charge want to stay in charge, it's again, it's that barroom analogy. You have to support each other's bullshit. This y'all are right. That the first thing and now this one right now, it's the same shit. What we're seeing is the same shit. We are seeing, sadly, heteronormative men in positions of assumed authority able to get away with the most horrific shit. And yeah, being somebody who is also going through trauma therapy due to things like sexual abuse and stuff like that, I understand from experience how much it just fucks you up for unless you work through it. It just fucks you up for so long, and it makes it hard to function. I dealt with drug abuse, substance abuse disorder directly after I was abused, and I went down that rabbit hole for about 4 years, and that didn't make me less of a person. That didn't make me immoral, but we have drugs and immorality kind of tied together, and that's the bullshit that's being perpetuated by the fucking Christian right. But you know, we find these guys time and time again extorting money, abusing children. These pray the gay away fuckers. They get caught with underage boys doing drugs. You know, so I don't know. This shit breaks my heart. Kelley, I know this one really hit home. Would you mind giving me kind of your final thoughts on this?
I wish this Monsignor had done more. I realize he took a list of the offending priest who was superior.
Done more to help, right? Done more to
yeah,
help.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, no,
Okay.
just more, right? More to help. He brought that list to his superiors. They ignored it. He knew they ignored it, and then he just ignored it as well.
Yeah.
He could have gone to other authorities. He could have gone to the police. He could have gone to the media. These are kids. These are kids whose lives have been ruined. And
yeah, man.
they were ruined with basically his approval. And
yes,
I can't say, I don't know that 3 years out of his life in prison was enough of a penalty. To me, it wasn't.
No.
You know, I mean, I
no,
spent
No.
25
No.
years trying to find myself, right? So 3 years is nothing to me.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's hard for me to talk about this subject.
Yeah, I
guys.
understand.
Anybody
And what's
else? Go
fucked?
ahead.
yeah,
The guy stayed a priest. That's the thing. It's not
Yeah,
like
that's
Yeah.
part of
Stayed
it.
a
That's
fucking
one of the big
priest.
main problems right
So,
there.
yeah.
yeah.
fuck that guy too. So that's all I got to say.
That's a good way to sum it up. Fuck that guy.
Fuck
Yeah.
that guy.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Okay, well,
Whew.
I guess that is a good sum up, and we can move on then.